Well, hello there. I'm going to show you how to do my Spring Delight scarf, shawl, or infinity scarf, or cowl, or whatever you want to make with the flat panel. And this is what the stitch looks like. I used a number 3 yarn, Mary Maxim Prison yarn. That's it right here, the number 3. And the color is Autumn Mist. And I'm on a 5/8 inch gauge, Cindy Wood loom. It's actually a 48 peg Cindy Wood loom, but I'm on a 5/8 inch gauge. You can get the same look with a number 4 yarn and a 3/4 inch gauge. If you want to get this lacy look for a nice summer project. It would look good as a winter scarf too if you used a heavier gauge. So anyway, I'll do a close-up. Here's what it looks like. It's got the eyelets, and then it's got a nice kind of a lacy look in between the eyelets. And I've decided to make a cowl, so I've actually been marking my pegs that I'm going to pick up because I'm going to join the cowl on the loom. And so I like to mark them first so that I don't put on the wrong stitches. And so it comes on nice and even, and so I always mark them with stitch markers first. But if you're going to make a scarf, or if you're going to make a shawl, I will put a link, because the bind off that matches the cast on I'm going to show you is on my YouTube channel. It's just, I think I called it the stitch crochet cast off that matches the kind of crochet cast on that I do, and so that they look the same on both ends. If you're doing an infinity scarf, you can join it the same way that I'm going to join the cowl. So I'll be showing you how to do that. And you use odd pegs. I used 23 pegs for this, and it made it 9.5 inches across. I measured it. And for the cowl, I'm 19 inches long. Once I bind off, I'll be about 20 inches long, which is the cowl that I wanted. It's going to be round, right, and just be attached like that and be a cowl. And I'm going to show you how you set up your pegs. So 23 will give you this. Use more if you want the shawl. And I'm just going to show you here how to set them up, because it'll be easier to see because there's nothing on the loom. So I used 17 pegs, and I've marked my last peg with my first peg with a yellow marker, and my last peg with the yellow marker. And then what you do is you go in 1, 2, 3, 4 pegs, and you mark it. And 1, 2, 3, 4 pegs you go in, and then you mark the next one, and then you go in 2 and mark that one, and then you have your middle peg. So starting on the yellow peg, or on your outer markers, if you want to find your middle peg and be sure you have it, you can just count in like this, moving your fingers till you hit the middle peg, and then you'll know that you're on the middle peg. And then you go every 2, right, only marking the even pegs, except you're going to leave 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then mark it. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and then mark it, depending on the odd that you chose. So here's my last peg, and here's my last peg. And I'm 1, 2, 3 on the 4th I'm in, and it's because I chose 23 pegs. So from the middle peg, you're going out every 2. And here, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas on the other one, I was a total of 5 in. I started on this peg to make it, and it's because it's 17 pegs. So that's an easy way. It will work either way. On this one, my eyelets are going to be this close to the edge, which is pretty close to the edge, but it works. On this one that I've marked smaller, my eyelets are just going to be 1 further out. So it would be about there. Just one peg smaller in, right? So it would look just the same pretty much. You wouldn't notice much of a difference. But that's how you mark it. Okay, so I'm just going to do the cast on now, and I'm going to use a thicker yarn because it's easier to see. So if I do most of my work with the thicker yarn, you'll have a lot easier time seeing what I'm doing. And I'm just going to get set up, and I'll put you on pause for just a second. Okay, so this is Barcelona yarn in the color Breeze that I'm going to use to show you the cast on. So we just go to the first peg, which I marked in yellow here, and I made a slip knot. I'll show you that again. I just make a really easy slip knot. I just make a loop and put the yarn through it. There's the slip knot. And then put it on the first peg and tighten it up a bit. And then I put the crochet hook into here, into the loop, and I scoop up the working yarn and I make a loop. Okay, and then we're just gonna use the yarn on the end here to tighten it up, and then I'm just gonna put it behind the second peg here and just tighten it up behind the second peg. Put the working yarn through and just tighten it up behind the next peg, working yarn through and just tighten it up. Next peg. It's this easy. Very easy cast on. It's just a crochet cast on without the crochet hook. I've tried it from the back and the front, and I like it on the front easier on the loom without the crochet hook. It's easier to get the stitches to be the same tension as you go. Okay, so I'm just casting on all the pegs. And then we just plop that loop over, tighten it, and then I just put the yarn over and knit it off to secure it. And then we'll start the stitch. Now for the edge, what I did is I just did the edge I usually use with owl eye, and I liked the look. I also did a slip stitch, and I like this look better, but a slip stitch does work on this, so if you want to slip your stitch, that'll be fine. But here we are on a color where you can see better. It just gives this kind of a braided look with a little knotty thing here kind of in the middle. Anyway, it looked attractive. It was less loose. I liked it. I don't like loose edges. Here it is on a lighter color too. You can see it better there. That's what it looks like on the edge. But you can also slip your stitches. So I'll show you how to do that. You can do either edge. It'll work just as good. Okay, so, oh yeah, I'm showing you on here, so let's go back here. So we're going to do 4 rows of owl eye. Now on the first one, I'm just going to knit it over. So even if you're going to slip your stitches, you should knit over the first one to get a better edge. And then I'm going to do owl eye. So just knit it over. Wherever you are, you're on peg 1, wrap peg 1 and 2, knit it over. You're on peg 1, wherever you end up, wrap peg 1 and 2 over the front and knit it off. On peg 1, round, wrap 1 and 2. And always keep it loose. First of all, it looks better when it's loose. Harder for me to keep it loose because I've got such a bulky yarn on a 5/8 inch gauge. But here we go. Just over 1 and 2 and knit them off. Peg 1. Over 1 and 2, knit it off. Peg 1 over 1 and 2 and knit it off. And you're just going to do 5 rows of the owl eye. You can also do 4 rows if you'd like. 5 just gives you a little bit nicer border before you, a little bit longer border before you start the eyelets, but 4 works just as well. What you want to do is end up wherever you're going to start, and I'm going to start here and work to the right. If you were going to start on the left here and work towards the left, just do the amount of rows that'll leave you there, either 4 or 5. Okay, I'm just going to show you the edges when we get down here. And here we are over here. Okay, now if you were going to slip the edge you've gone over, you would just slip it and you would come in front of the next peg. So you'd just be here, you wouldn't knit it again, you'd just move to the first peg and do your first owl eye. But I'm just going to wrap over it instead, and I'm going to do the first like that. So that's how I get my edge, but you can slip it as well, and then you just go into the owl eye stitch. So do your rows and come, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I only did a couple rows. I'm going to start, because I'm on a thicker yarn, I don't think I need as many rows, and also because it's just demonstration piece that I'm going to frog. But there's your cast on, looking nice and tight. I would have done it really, really loose if I was going to do what I did here, because it just makes it easier when you attach it, because I'm going to do a cowl and attach it. But you still would be able to do it just fine like this. But if you were doing a shawl or an infinity scarf, you would want a tighter edge, but it gives you a really nice looking braided edge here. Okay, and owl eye gives you this little bit of a lacy look. It's going to be tighter when it's off the loom. It's still stretched from being on the loom, but now I'm going to show you what to do. Now the reason that I did the eyelets this way with having the center peg and moving these pegs here is we're going to work from this end and move the pegs this way, and we're going to work from this end and move the pegs this way. Now there's a reason I did this, because you can work just going all the way, moving pegs all the way along. I wouldn't have to set up with a middle peg, but then your work would be leaning one direction. It wouldn't be coming down perfectly straight. Your stitches wouldn't be coming down straight. They would be kind of leaning to one side like that, because we're always moving on the same row to get that eyelet look. So that's why I did it that way. Okay, so anyway, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you what you do with the pegs on this row. So here's your middle peg, and what you're going to do is you're going to be moving all of the yarn that doesn't have a marker onto the peg that has a marker. So we can start this way, and we're going to be moving this peg onto this one that has the blue marker. See? So we just take the yarn, move it over, and when you do owl eye, it makes it really easy to move yarn over if you've done it loose. So now you've got 2 stitches on the peg with the marker, and then you take the next one, move it over, we got 2 stitches here. And then the middle peg, we take this, move it over, and we now have 2 stitches on the middle peg. Then we start on this end, right? Here's where our marker is, right here, blue marker. So we take this yarn and we move it on to the blue marker. Then we take this one, move it onto the peg that has the marker, and then we move this one onto the middle peg. So the middle peg will always have 3 stitches on it, while the other pegs have 2 stitches. And then we're going to do 4 rows of owl eye. We always do 4 rows of owl eye, and then we do this where we move the yarn onto the pegs. That's how we get our eyelets, with 4 rows of owl eye in between. So I ended here. I'm going to do my corners this way. So I just knit over, and I keep doing owl eye all the way along. So here I'm doing owl eye. I'm about to wrap owl eye again, but I'm going to wrap right over this peg like it isn't there, over to this peg, and then I'm going to knit them both off. And you can knit these yarns off one at a time or together, whichever is easier. And so there we go. Then I'm going to rewrap this one. I'm going to wrap right over this one like it doesn't exist. So basically I'm just laying the yarn over And then I'm going to knit these two off. And then I'm going to go over this one onto the middle peg, knit it off. So your first row of your 4 rows of owl eye will always be coming over and picking up these stitches, and then continue to do owl eye, rewrapping this peg, taking the yarn over, rewrapping this peg, taking the yarn over, rewrapping this peg, and owl eye to the end. Okay, and here you either slip your stitch or you go over the way that I'm doing it here. And then you keep going. And this is the second row of owl eye. And you do your 4 rows of owl eye, and then you'll be moving the stitches again. And see, we've got the eyelets coming here. This is where the eyelets are. And there's your eyelets. Okay, so I'll just do my 4 rows of owl eye here, and I will catch up with you. And I'm back again because I just wanted to show you when you go over the peg that had the yarn laid over it that we went right over, you just do owl eye just normally with it. Take the yarn over. Doing owl eye, we do owl eye here, we knit these just like this, a regular stitch. Okay, so I'm finishing off my row 2, and then I'll do my other 2 rows, and we'll meet back up. I thought maybe I should just show you that. Okay, so I've done my 4 rows, so now you can see that the eyelets are down here, and we don't have as lacy a look here. So this would make a fine winter scarf with eyelets in it. Done with a thick bulky yarn on the 5/8 inch gauge. And now we're back to where we just move over the eyelets. Okay, so you move over all the ones that have no yarn on them over onto a peg that has a color. I'm just going to do it this way right now because I know the middle peg has the 2 yarns on it. And I'm just going to move down here because it doesn't really matter which way you do it as long as you move them the right way. And there, those 2 are moved on, and now I need to move the ones this way, so I'm moving this way. And there we are. Now it's all set up, and we do the owl eye over, and we'll have our next row of eyelets, but I'm not going to do that. It was just my sample. We're going to go back to this work that's got all messed up and gone over the pegs. There, straighten it all out. Oh, and there's how the edge looks on here. There, on the thicker yarn. Hard to see on the variegated yarn, but it's a nice tight edge with the thicker yarn. There it is there, nice tight edge. There, that picks it up. It's kind of a braided look. Okay, so we're back onto this one now. I'm just gonna pause because my yarns are all tangled together here, so I need to untangle them, and I will take this work right off the loom. So I'll meet you back up in a few minutes. Okay, well now we're back onto this one, and I've moved it, and there's my middle peg, and what I've done with that one is I marked them all in the same color, but what I did was I put a stitch marker here to show that it was the middle peg, and so it's got its 3 pieces of yarn on it, and then all the rest were moved over onto a peg that had the color, and because I've used more pegs, we've got more eyelets happening. And so now we're just going to go over this, and I've already started at the end. I usually go over and do my first owl eyes here and secure it so that I'm not securing it on the edge peg because I don't want this edge to get really pulled there. So now that I've moved these ones over, we just owl eye it. And I'm in the prism yarn here. Oop. I can take both over at once, and then I owl eye it and go over the empty peg. And might move the yarns over separate on this one. That's very, very thin. It's a roving yarn and has some thin pieces and some thick pieces. It's harder to see on the little yarn, but I'll show you this way too. So we're just putting them all over. And there's our middle peg that's got 3 yarns on it. Those 2 went over together. And just knitting them over. And then here I am, getting closer to the end. Oh, I am at the end. That's the last peg. Got fooled by the markers I put on to do that. Oh my goodness. But anyway, I made it right to the end. Okay, and then we just, now what I'm going to do, because I don't want it to get much longer, and I'm going to attach it, is I have the eyelets here and I have a lot of rows of owl eye, but I'm going to attach it. So I don't want to have too many rows of owl eye before I attach it. So what I'm going to do is just one more row of owl eye, and then I'm going to attach the 2 pieces. So I'm just going to knit back in the owl eye here. I got my yarn here that had got all tangled with the other yarn. There we go. Such a fine yarn here. So I'm just going to owl eye back, so I go over, or if you're slipping, you can slip it. And I just owl eye back. Now where I attach it on the loom is going to be the back, because it's going to look different. There's no way it's not going to look different when you are attaching a stitch like this. But by attaching it on the loom, it's just going to be attached completely evenly, and I like that. I like it to have a good amount of stretch on the place where it's attached. Like I said, if you want to do a cast off and have a shawl or a scarf that's not infinity or a cowl, then I will put a link to the bind off that I use that goes with this cast on. A little hard for me to do owl eye this way, the way I'm showing you, because what I usually do is I use 2 hands and I just wrap over like this, because I'm on the ambidextrous side, so I can just do this. And but most people can't, so I'm just going to do it like this. And then here we are. Okay, now I'm just going to join it on the loom now that I've got another row of owl eye there. So I'm just going to come up. Now when I put these stitch markers in, what I did is I wanted it to look attractive, So you have your 2 loops. Here's the 2 loops here. That would have been the bind off. I used the top loop. So I just used the 1 loop at the top so that it would look nice here on the inside, and made sure that I had 23 places since I had 23 pegs. And then what I do is I just take the first one. You can see here's the loop, here's the stitch marker, and I just place, make sure I've got the outer stitch marker. Yep, okay. And I just place it on the loom. Next stitch marker, I just pull over the loop. And you don't have to use stitch markers, you just have to be able to put the loops on the loom. But I like to use them because this just makes it so easy to make sure I've got all the right strands. And they just all slip on just like that. And here's the last one. And it's a little bit tighter. There. There we go. All on. So there we go. We got both ends attached on the loom. And then I'm just going to unclip my stitch markers. And I'm going to put on pause because you don't need to see me unclipping every stitch marker. Okay, I took all the stitch markers off. Now all we need to do is knit the bottom loop over the top. And of course this one's loose because I got to pull it tighter. There we go. And just knit them all off. And that secures them together nice and evenly. There. So now they're together. Now you have 2 choices actually of bind off. If you can do a really loose basic bind off, a basic bind off is fine, or you can use the crochet stretchy cast off binding that I use. And the one that I'm going to link you to that matches this one. But I'm going to just do the crochet one because it's really stretchy. It's stretchier than the basic bind off, and I normally use the basic very loosely, but this is a very stretchy stitch, so I want a really stretchy bind off. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take the yarn and go the length of your stitches here. And I'm just going to wrap it around on the inside here, and that's for how long I'm going to go here. Bring it against here, so that's 2, and I'm going to do about 2.5 times right here. So I'm going to cut it right here, the yarn, and I'm going to put you on pause while I find my scissors and my needle. Okay, so I've threaded my needle. I cut the yarn where I showed you. I threaded my needle. And what I'm going to do is just go down the first stitch, and you gotta make sure that none of your loops, because your yarn's long here, get caught on anything. And then I'm going to go up the one right here beside it, And then I'm going to actually come back around and go down because I want this to have the yarn in it twice at the end. Okay, and then I'm going to start doing it the way I'm going to do it all the way along. Okay, so I'm just going to go around the second peg that we already had yarn for, and then I'm going to go down number 3 peg here, and I'm going to go back up the number 2 peg, so it now has the yarn through it twice. I'm going to go behind the number 3, and I'm going to go down the number 4 peg, and you're going to keep tightening the yarn as you do it. And I'm going to go up the number 3 peg, then I'm going to go between 3 and 4 and around and down 1 2 3 4 5 number 5 peg. And up the number 4 peg again, and just tightening it up as you go. I can't tighten it up too much because this yarn would break. It's a very fine roving yarn. Okay, oop. Okay, and we're going to go down, up the peg before, between the 2 pegs we just did to go down the new peg, and then up the peg before, behind to go down the new peg, supposed to be behind there, and then up the peg before, or I mean back to that peg there. I missed the yarn. Okay, and then over here, it's the same color as the peg there, down the new peg, up the peg before it, around, down the new peg, if I can get actually without splitting the yarn in there, that'd be nice. Okay, and behind and up the peg before, around the 2 pegs, down the new one, up the peg before, and then around to go down the middle peg, and I'm just going to put on pause while I finish this row. Okay, so I've made it down to the end, so I'm going to go behind this one and down this last one, the same color yarn as the peg. Okay, and then up the one before it. There we go, and then I'm just going to go down this one again, second time, and then I'm just going to go down it once more and put the yarn through to secure it, and that's it, done. And then we just take it off the loom. Okay, let's put it on pause and show it to you when it's off the loom. Okay, well here it is all attached, so that just keeps it attached, so you can wear it now like a cowl, and the cowl will go on you this way. And this actually looks the same on both sides. It looks really nice on both sides, so you can use either side as your good side. And where you attached it goes in the back, and there you go, you got a cowl. Okay, so there you go, and I will put a link to that bind off that I use when I do the cowl, or when I do the scarf or the shawl, is actually the same one that I showed you here. You're just not picking up the other stitches, but I'll put a link to it anyway. And so I hope you enjoyed the video, and it's a really pretty stitch. There it is. When I have more time, I'm going to make myself some bigger pieces in it, but I'm doing a lot of traveling for the summer, so I'm trying to get a lot of videos out with my stitches while it's still spring and summer. Okay, and so until next time, bye.